Well, hello, folks. This is Shiny Free Jesus logging in once again. I've got a special treat for you folks today. One of my favorite stories in the Bible in the Old Testament. It comes out of First Samuel chapter 4 through the end of 6, the beginning of chapter 7. It's a story of the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of God, and how the Philistines decide that they're going to steal the Ark of the Covenant. You got to understand the history. Now, all the other countries, all the other peoples of the world were kind of jealous of the Israelites because they had this big bad God that allowed them to find favor at almost every turn. Anytime they had an enemy, God would deliver that enemy into the hands of Israel and secure victory for them. Well, maybe not every time, but a good deal of the time. And a lot of the known world recognized this. And they reasoned that the reason and cause that Israel had such success was because they had this Ark of the Covenant, and these other people believed that if they were to take this Ark, that Israel would no longer have the presence and favor of God. So they wanted to steal this Ark. So the Philistines decide they're gonna steal the Ark, and they do. They bring it back to their country. They bring it back to Ashdod, I believe it is, and they put it in the temple of Dagon, which was their god, which was a pagan god. And inside this temple, there was a statue of this Dagon. Well, they put the Ark of the Covenant in there and locked the temple up. The next day, they go in to find the statue of Dagon laying face down right in front of the Ark, like it was bowing down and giving obeisance to the Ark of the Covenant. Of course, this could have been, a unique coincidence. Maybe there's some seismic activity. Maybe it was just not level, and the statue fell over and just happened to be right in front of it, face down in front of the Ark. So, they set it back up, and again, at the end of the day, they lock up the temple. They go their own route, and in the morning, they go in there, and what do they find? They find the statue of Dagon again, prostrated in front of the Ark of the Covenant, except now it's also broken in pieces. Now, we need to understand that the people of Ashdod were incredibly devoted to this Dagon, this pagan deity, and none of them would have broken into the temple. None of them would have pushed over this statue of Dagon or broke it apart. That would have been like death penalty beyond reason. So this had to be the spirit and the movement of God trying to send a message that this demigod is not God. I am God, God was saying. And that's why it was broken and prostrated in front of the Ark. Well, they decided to just continue on holding on to the Ark, and it's not long, and the entire countryside of Ashdod is stricken with basically what translates to hemorrhoids, a vicious case of the hemorrhoids. Everybody in Ashdod, everyone in Philistia, everybody to the man, woman, and child came down with severe hemorrhoids. So they're sitting there thinking maybe we bit off more than we could chew. Maybe we shouldn't have this Ark of the Covenant. But rather than send it back to the Israelites, they decided to send it to another place. They decided to send it over to, I believe it was Gath. And of course, when it gets to Gath, these people also, they're thinking, yay, we've got the upper hand on Israel now. We've got the Ark of the Covenant. We've got the power of God behind. Yeah. In short order, their entire countryside is stricken with severe hemorrhoids. Every man, woman, and child is come down with hemorrhoids for some reason. They realize they bit off a little more than they could chew. So what do? They in turn send it off to their neighbor. Let's see which one. Oh yes, they sent it off to Ekron, to their neighbors. And of course, they encountered this exact same situation. They had this Ark of the Covenant. They thought they were going to be victorious. They thought they had now the power and presence and favor of God. But no, they had brought curse upon themselves by possessing something that wasn't theirs to possess. So again, the entire countryside is stricken with severe hemorrhoids, every man, woman, and child. But at least the people of Ekron saw sense. They decided they needed to turn this Ark of the Covenant back over to Israel. They said, you know what, this is bad, this is awful. We can't do anything with this situation. We need to return this to get the hand of God to go away from us, so we're not stricken with disease and put in an even worse situation, because they realized that hemorrhoids was just the beginning of it. It could have been a lot worse. God could have stricken them with a lot. God could have stricken them all down dead. He could have given them much more fatal diseases. And their experience with Israel's God was, he's a God that didn't play. If he wanted to take care of an enemy, he took care of an enemy, and it just happened. And these people realized it, so they decided they were going to send it back to Israel. So they're trying to figure out exactly how they're going to do this, because anybody that physically touches the ark immediately falls down dead. So they're trying to figure out, how do we load this up? Where do we take it? How do we send it? And God sends a prophet, a messenger, to Ekron, and he explains exactly what they need to do, exactly how they need to hitch up their oxen, the wagons, the carts, the way they need to be. He has them fill the carts up with valuable gold, but has them smelt the gold down and form them all into shapes of little hemorrhoids. So you have the Ark of the Covenant traveling back to Israel with multiple carts full of tiny golden hemorrhoids. A little bit of irony there. Now, I'd like to point out a few things in this whole scenario. Misery loves company. If you notice, when the Philistines took the ark and things started happening bad to them, did they send the ark back to Israel? No, they said, hey, we got our neighbors over here at Gath. We aren't too happy with them either. Why don't we just send the ark over there and let the same thing happen to them? That's what they did. And the same thing happened to Gath. And in Gath, their people, they were the same thing. Israel loves company. They were stricken. They were diseased, and rather than send the ark back to where it belonged, they decided to pass this disease on to Ekron, and of course then they in turn suffered. And obviously they came to their right minds and had to sacrifice a great amount of gold and resource and time to get the ark to go back to where it needed to be, but they lived. There's some morals here that we can look at. There's a lot of times when we do things that aren't right in our walk with God, that we fall into sin, that we fall into deception, that we get distracted and stray from our path. A lot of times we end up dragging other people down that path with us. We don't want to pave that road alone. Misery loves company. We feel a lot better doing bad and doing wrong when we're doing it with other people. And it's a sad truth of society and of the idea of backsliding, because it's real easy to fall away. It's really easy to fall out. It's a slow fade. We slowly slip away. And then when we do, we find we're all alone, so we seek companionship and comfort in any way we can, and often it's not the right place, which is Christ. So we end up sharing our misery. We end up sharing our curse, our suffering with other people. We end up passing on what we've brought upon ourselves onto other people, so that we don't have to shoulder that burden alone. But that's not the way it should be. Obviously, the Bible talks about this story and this situation for a reason, to give us a pattern of what we should not follow, how we should seek to remedy and rectify a situation, rather than simply just passing the situation off on other people. We can't avoid doing the things we need to do. We can't avoid being more faithful and making sacrifices on a day-to-day basis to be more devoted and dedicated to God, to making spiritual progress and having spiritual growth. We can't just set those things aside. We can't just pass them off on to other people. We got to take responsibility and accountability for our own actions. Otherwise, we are going to be diseased. We're going to be diseased with sin. We're going to be diseased with curse. We're going to be diseased with disfavor amongst God, amongst mankind. Everywhere we go, we're going to have some kind of disease, whether it's a spiritual disease, a physical disease, a mental disease, an emotional disease, or all the above. We're going to have those diseases as long as we continue to do the wrong things with the right things we're given. You know, if I had $1 million, I could invest that $1 million in drugs, women, possessions that are going to perish, before I do or shortly after. They're not going to last. Or I could use that $1 million and I can plant seeds of righteousness. I can help the poor. I can support families in need. I can provide things for people who lack. I can help provide medical equipment and pay for medical personnel to help people in countries that are lacking those things. I mean, I could invest that money two different ways. I can invest it in the kingdom, or I can invest it in Satan's kingdom. The world or God's kingdom. Satan's world, God's kingdom. I can invest in one or the other. Now, this is the same principle here. They had an opportunity. They had an option. They had a choice. They chose to do the wrong thing and paid and suffered the consequence for it. But personally, this story makes me laugh every time. Every time I look back upon it. I mean, God's got to have a sense of humor. He struck whole countrysides with hemorrhoids. I mean, he could have done all kinds of different things. He stuck them with hemorrhoids. You know what hemorrhoids are? They're the pain in the ass. That's literally what they are, pain in the ass. Forgive me for my swearing, but, pain in the donkey. It gets the message across either way, but, I like to think that God was like, these people are being a pain in the donkey to me, so I'm going to give them a pain in the donkey, show them how it feels. Cracks me up every time. But even in the midst of joy and humor and laughter, I still have to take a moment to step back and see how this stuff applies to my life. What is the Ark of the Covenant anyway? It was the dwelling place of the Spirit of God. What are we as Christian believers? We are the dwelling place of the Spirit of God. Do you realize we are the modern day living, walking Ark of the Covenant? Let that sink in for a minute. Sure, there might be a physical representation still. There might be some, treasure chest or whatever with the angels on top on each side of the mercy seat. I'm sure there probably is. But in a spiritual sense, we now contain the Spirit of God. So we now are the Ark of the Covenant. What are we doing with it? Are we taking the Ark to the enemy? Are we letting them hold on to us? Are we sitting in a dark temple in front of demigods and false gods and idols? What are we doing with the Ark? It's just something to think about anyways. In any event, I hope you got some joy, some laughter out of the story, and I hope that you'll take the time in your own life to look back upon these scriptures that I talk about and read them for yourself and see what God wants to show you through them, because no scripture is given to private interpretation. My interpretation and revelations that have been given to me and wisdom and insight given to me from the Spirit aren't necessarily what He's going to give to you. He might give you something totally different. I'd love to hear about it because I don't want to limit God. In any event, God bless you folks. I appreciate your patience and your dedication, and I pray that you have a blessed day. Good night.